Here's some fundamental things that you need to do every time you get a piece of band music. First of all, you need to number your measures, okay? So some of the rehearsal markings, like 3, 11, whatever, each piece is different, is labeled for you. And sometimes the first measure of the line, like you can barely see it here, but that says 7. We gotta go in and go 1, 2, 3. This is a multi-measure rest. We're gonna go 3, 4, 5. This is 6, there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11's already marked, 13, and so on, all the way through the whole piece. Now, if you have a multiple percussion part, like this piece, when Mr. I assigns something, first thing you need to do is put your name in the top here, okay? You also need to mark what we're playing. So if I just give you crash cymbal, there's all these other parts, so you just need to circle your part so you know which part to work on. Or sometimes you'll do 2 things. Then the next thing I would do is highlight those notes. So let's say you play crash, you circle it here or highlight it here, and you do China as well. You'll highlight where it says crash. I'm not gonna highlight where it says vibroslap because that's not me. And here's China, I'll highlight that. Sometimes it'll come back again and it won't say it, so pay attention. The crash was on the G space and the China was on the E space, so this is China again, so I'm gonna highlight that. So you know when your part's coming up. Now more so than that, you have got to tell yourself where to go. So if this is the last time I play crash in measure 2 and I know China is coming up, I need to put go to China. Okay, not literally, but I'm gonna go to the China symbol and I'll pick up the stick that I need or whatever so that I'm ready, because if I just wait till measure 12 to read that, it's too late. Okay, I do China twice. I know the next thing I have is China, so I'm not gonna write anything. Then after this last China, I know I gotta go to my crash, so I'm gonna go to crash. Okay, if you ever have a mallet part that plays bells and another instrument, you need multiple sheets of music. So you need to make sure you have one for your bells and one for your vibes or whatever, because you can't be moving your music back and forth. Okay, let's say you have a piece that is 3 pages or more. Here's what you need to do. Typically this happens in percussion ensemble. Take a piece of tape, put a little bit of space between your paper, maybe just a little bit of daylight. Make sure it's exactly even. Put a piece of tape on the top. Put a piece of tape. Make sure it's even. The bottom, do the same thing on your 3rd sheet. Now you should be able to fit that on one stand and it's not going to fall apart. Also, when it's time to put it away, you can just kind of fold it into itself and put it in a plastic sheet. Also, when you see these repeats over and over, you need to label them. Okay, so 5, this is the 2nd time you played 5, 3rd, the 4th is already written in there for you, 5th, 6th. When you do that, you're not going to get lost, okay? When we see things that repeat, our eyes tend to get lost, but if we have this number to kind of help us keep us on track, we're not going to get lost as much. When you have repeat signs, go ahead and highlight them so your eye knows where to go back to once you finish your first ending, or when you get to your repeat sign here. Same thing for things like DC al coda or DC al fine or DS al coda, DS al fine. You need to write those things in so you know where your eyes need to jump to automatically. Okay, timpani tuning. You need to make sure you watch the tuning tutorial. But let's say you get a piece for timpani. We know we're going to draw a picture. Now it tells you actually what pitches you have, but that's not the full story. Okay, we actually need to make some decisions here and double check what we have. And I'll look through my whole piece here. I have an A, a D so far. Okay, so those are these 2 right here. Now later on it says I have an F, here's the F, but look, then I have a C as well. That's 4 notes, F, A, C, D, but I may not want the D to be on the top drum, so I need to think through this. Obviously I'm not going to put the F on the 29 because that's its lowest pitch. We're going to put it on this drum, okay, because it's a low F. Okay, I know my A is not going to sound great here because that's the lowest pitch for the 26, so I'm probably going to put the A here. Now, if I put the D here, that's going to be pretty low in the range. Now I looked here and I have my D here, and I don't really have my D around this C, so I'm probably going to change my pitch. Look, it even says it right there, but again, that's not the end of the story there. Okay, so I'm going to start with D here. I'm looking ahead. I don't see any other higher pitches, so I'm not going to use this drum. Now, when you have this nice picture to know which drums you're going to tune to what, but now we need to look, when's the last time I played that D, because I know I want to change the 26 to a C over here. So, looks like the last time I played is over here. So I'm going to do a tuning change right there where it says it, but I'm going to draw it in my own way, okay? I know I'm going to go D down to C. I also want to remind myself which drum. It's the 26 drum, okay? 32, 29, 26, 23. Okay, then I'm going to draw myself a new picture. Okay, I know these didn't change, but this one did. And how did I get there? I went down. I'm reminding myself. Okay, that way if the instructor says start at 24, I have a picture instead of going back here and going, oh wait, I had a D and then I changed it to C and then the band started and you're already too late. Okay, now here's another pitch change. Okay, and that's going to be the A on the 29. So, when's the last time I play A? Looks like the last time I play A is also back here. Now I probably don't have enough time to do the pitch change. Right here I can do it during the trio like it says, okay? So again, I went A, I'm going to go down to B flat, and that's on the 29. Okay, then I'm going to draw a new picture. Now, you might do this. The last thing I had was C, so now I know my new notes, F, B flat, C. So timpani can get pretty complicated. So you might do this and then look further on and go, wait, oh, I made a mistake. I have a D coming up, and you're gonna have to make some decisions. But this is a good way to keep you sane, because if you don't write it down and draw pictures, you're gonna get confused and you're just gonna be guessing. Okay? So this is a good way to stay organized. Let's say if this music is 2 pages long, at the top of the second page, I'm gonna go ahead and draw the last picture I had just to remind myself of what my pitches are, just in case your teacher starts on the second page. Okay, band binders. Your teacher might want it a certain way, but I can kind of give you some general do's and don'ts. Obviously we want a black folder so it looks really nice on stage and we don't have all these different colors on stage. Concert black. I would have dividers so you can kind of just segment your own music. I'm sure your teacher might have their own way. But these plastic slips are going to help keep your papers nice and neat. I do not want to see your music ever folded, put in your pocket, bent up where they could create shadows, and where the AC wind will get underneath it and drop it on the floor, which has happened before. You need to keep your papers nice and straight, and these plastic sheets are going to help you do that, and then you can have different sections in your binder. Okay? I do not want to see a bunch of papers stuffed in here. Okay? That's not organized. Okay? It's just going to fall out. It's going to get the music messed up. You're not going to be able to find what you need when you need it. Okay? A lot of middle school binders need to include like a pencil pouch that can go in here, and you need to keep your pencils and a highlighter and things like that in there. We use pencil and band, but we also know we're going to keep the pencil on the stand, so take it out of there when rehearsal starts and then put it back in the pouch. Always put a pencil on your stand. Always. Always put a pencil on your stand. Always. Always put a pencil on your stand. Always.
Always put a pencil on your stand. Always.
Here comes McGrady. No timeout for Manning. McGrady for the win. Yes!
First try.
1.7 to go. San Antonio with no timeout. Here's Parker, and the Rockets steal a game.
Okay, real quick, we're going to go over some of the common instruments. Not all of them, just the common ones where I always have to say the same thing over and over to the students. And these are instruments that we're using most band pieces. Now, first of all, I know I look super cool, but I left my glasses in the car, so I'm going to look super cool. Whenever we set up on any instrument, we need to make sure your body, your instrument, your stand are all pointing towards the director, okay? And not only that, but when you set up your stand, you need to get your stand at a height that is as high as you can while still seeing the director. So basically, all the director needs to be able to see is your eyes. So I like to call this like alligator or crocodile eyes. That's what we want to see. If your stand is really low, the director is just going to see the top of your head, and you cannot communicate with the director. Okay? So if you're the director, here's what they should see. And I'm tall, so I'm going to bring this up. That's what they should see. They should see your eyes, and that's it. Not even your nose, right? And this is a no-no. Are you looking at the conductor like this? No. Or like this? No. You've got to set everything up in line with the conductor. So make sure we do that for every instrument. So first off, let's talk about the bass drum. There are a lot of professional techniques that we could go on for hours and hours about. We're going to go over the basics that can get you to survive a band rehearsal. So we don't want to be over to the side. Okay, we got to be behind it with our left foot set where I just showed you. And then we're kind of deep into the drum where our hand is easily flat. We're not having to do something like this. Okay, we got it where we're naturally flat. So once you have your feet set correctly, that means your body can be in the right position so that you're not stabbing at the drum and you're getting a flat position on the head, just like we do on the snare drum. Now, next thing I want you to know is that you never play on the front side of the head because you're usually hitting center and then moving down. A lot of beginners or middle school kids like to put the stand like right in front of the bass drum. Well, you can't see it over there. Okay, so get it in as close as possible. You know you can get it almost to the middle of the drum because we never use this side of the head. So the next thing is make sure your music is on the left side, because if you put your music on the right side, it doesn't matter how you set your body and stand up. You're looking over here and the conductor is here. So put your music on the left side, okay? Get rid of this towel. We don't need that towel. Now, the only time the towel is a good idea is if we're playing something that sounds like a drum set part or is supposed to be a drum set part, and usually a drum set bass drum is very muted and very short. But other than that, we need to be able to control the length of the note, and so that means how short the note is, how long the note is, and the band director might talk to us about what they want to hear, and we need to be able to manipulate it using our hand and arm, which I'll show you in a second. Now let's talk about where to hit on the drum, okay? Usually I'm hitting off center, so here's the very center, here's off center. I'm going to take my hand and all the way to my elbow, I'm going to put it on the head, okay? Usually on quarter notes or anything shorter than that, I'm going pretty short. And then for half notes, 1, 3, I'm going to let it ring, or whole notes. But sometimes you can go and hold it by the edge here and it can still have some ring. The closer I go, the shorter the note's going to get. Okay? So I might have some longs and shorts. Long, short, long, short. Okay? And again, I'm just approaching this like a snare drum stroke. Okay? If I'm getting softer, I might drop my hit position to the bottom here. If I have a crescendo. Right? Now we want to make sure that we're not overpowering the band with the bass drum. So use common sense. Are you balancing with the instrumentation? You can't be the loudest thing in the room. Okay? If it's a solo, usually we're going to want that to ring. Okay? There's usually not a bass drum solo that just goes thud. So usually like in a march, if it's a solo or an accent, we really want that to stand out. So we're going to let that ring, even if it is a quarter note. The next thing we need to know on bass drum is how to roll. So on bass drum, when you have a roll, you also want to make sure you're using roller mallets, or otherwise they're going to be too heavy and be too thuddy. So these allow us to roll a little faster and have less contact sound, because a roll is just emulating a long tone. So we don't want to hear a bunch of contact sound. We just want to hear a wash of sound. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to separate your hands and go to the edge. Okay, so we're going to go to the top and the bottom. Have a loose grip and use rebound. And as you crescendo, you're going to go towards the center. Make sure the last note is in the center if there is a last note. So you go slow. Okay, it's kind of like a suspended cymbal, although in a suspended cymbal we know to stay on the edge and not move to the dome. But we will on the bass drum. Now if it's a big decrescendo, I might attack it and then do slow rolls to fast to the edge. Okay, so if it's a murmur, find that perfect tension in the hand, and speed where we're not hearing a bunch of notes, we're just hearing a wash of sound. On a bass drum, you want to have your mallet tray right next to you so you can set these things down. Also, the snare drummer can use it too at times. You could use a black towel. Well, of course, we have our mallet trays here that we need to use, and it kind of lives next to the bass drum all the time. Snare drum is very similar to your pad technique, so we don't need to go over it too much. Be careful when you're raising and lowering the snare. There's a lot more weight than a pad. Hold the weight before you loosen. okay? And make sure you're ready for that weight, because if it just falls, you could drop the drum or you slam it on your skin and you could really hurt yourself, okay? Make sure when you turn the snare mechanism on, especially if you have to turn it on and off during a piece, you need to do it slowly, so we don't want to hear the snares turn on in the middle of a piece of music, because we can hear that, okay? Typically when you have a ride cymbal or a hi-hat, put it on your right side so you don't have to cross, okay? We're not playing drum set, so we don't need to cross. Even when you're playing drum set, you might want to learn open, right? We're just going to put it on the right side and just have it a little bit further back so we're not bringing our elbow back. Other than that, just make sure it's the right height for you and that we're not overpowering the band and we're really paying attention to dynamics. You don't have to play too loud on the snare drum, so the heights are very low in range usually. The way I like to set up, I usually have the toys right behind the snare and the bass drum. Make sure you're set up in a window where you don't have somebody's head in your way, and so make sure you move the trap table between two students. Make sure that you only have on the table what you need. If you don't need it, put it back in the percussion cabinet so it's not cluttering up your space. The next two typical instruments are the tambourine and triangle. So again, there are just so many things we could go over this. I'm just going to go over the basics. So first of all, with the tambourine, so you see the part that has the hole? Okay, we don't put anything in there. Okay, we're going to put our thumb on top for stability, and then I want you to put your fingers on the head. If you can't reach the head, then put it on the inside rim. Okay, but we need to be able to control the angle here very easily. It can't just be falling around in our hand. Okay, now first off, I want you to notice when we put the jingles up like this, they're very loose and unstable. Same thing when it's completely flat, it has this little, it's not very stable there. So I want you to notice something. When I go from up to 45 degrees, the magic number, 45 degree, it settles those jingles, okay? So 45 degrees is going to work for us, okay? Now you could do 45 degrees down and just have it here natural, right? Or up here. Most middle school directors like it up here because then you're looking at them, okay? So I would have it up most of the time, okay? Now all you're going to do is if your thumb is at 6 o'clock, we're going to hit at 12 o'clock. Now we're going to use the mass of our hand to help with this. So if we're playing something very light, I might just stabilize with my thumb on the middle finger or first finger and just hit lightly on the edge. As I get louder, I'm going to add more fingers, more mass, and then if it's like a mezzo forte to forte, I'm going to do almost like a Kermit the Frog, all the parts of my finger. It's still from the wrist, and if I get really loud, I'm going to start using my whole fist towards the center. Don't hit your knuckle on the rim. You're going to move towards the center or something like that, okay? Now, for a roll, basic roll, you're going to attack it. I like to attack it like 2 o'clock because on a roll, we want to start it, and then we want to jingle. So this is actually good to have your hand up and down for the jingle because we want it to be jingly, right? So I would move it to the position that we were avoiding at first. It's just kind of a motion like this. Sometimes some people get some jiggle in the wrist, okay? And this is something you would have to just work on. It's not something you'll be able to do right away. And get a nice speed that just sounds constant, okay? And then we got to end it with a release 2. So I like to just bring it back to my hand. So I start it, go right into the roll, and then end it at the 45 degree. 1, 2, 3, okay? Or if it's a whole note roll, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So it depends on the piece. If there's a forte piano, you could go below the stand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. If you have a crescendo, you could bring it up so we could hear that in the audience, okay? There is also something called a thumb roll, okay? Or you could use your middle finger, okay? That's advanced. We'll go over that in class. But basically, you're going to start it by attacking it. You'll finish it by throwing your wrist into the release. Okay. There are things you can put on the tambourine to give you a little bit more friction. If you ever have something fast in the tambourine, you could get a chair. Actually hit with your knee and in the inside with your hand. Okay, that doesn't really happen too much. And sometimes you would even put it here and just put your hands on top. So it just depends on the piece. There are a lot of things we can do. The last thing I'll say is, just like the bass drum, you need to be able to control your shorts and longs. If you're getting really detailed with the tambourine, if you're hearing long, short, short, long, short, short, or something like that in the band. You could go long and open it up, like we talked about for the roll, and then back to 45 for the short, short. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can hear these ringing. So if you want to get really detailed and match the band, you could do that. Okay? There's a lot more techniques to go with tambourine, but those are the basics. Triangle. You want to make sure that you have your beaters, because the director might want a louder beater or thicker beater or a lighter beater. So make sure you have them all. Don't just go, oh wait, I'll be right back. Band director's not going to like that. You know, you going to find what you need. So bring it with you. There are a lot of different clips that go with the triangle, but I'm just going to give you basic rules here. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure the opening is on our left side if we are right-handed, because we want to make sure that this corner is on the right side so we can do a roll in a second. Now, the way I like to hold the clip is pretend like you're holding a soda in your non-dominant hand, which is my left hand, and then raise your first finger. Now, we're going to use the middle finger and the thumb to be the bass on the very edge. We don't want to be really close and affect the string or accidentally touch the triangle. So that's what I kind of do, and then I put my first finger to stabilize. Okay? Again, we don't want our fingers or anything touching the triangle. When you're holding the beater, hold at the very tip at the bottom. Don't hold it towards the middle. Hold it toward the bottom so we have the full weight of the beater. We want to hit with the tip of the beater, not like somewhere in the middle, right on the tip. So hold by the tip, hit by the tip. Now, we want to hold this where we see the conductor through the triangle. Again, they're going to want to make sure that you're looking. Again, the director wants to make sure you're making eye contact. So we're going to get this up here, see the conductor through here. Okay? Now, we're holding like this. Now, I'm just going to do I'm just going to move my middle finger just a little bit. And it's not a wrist stroke, it's not an arm stroke. It's just a little nudge from your finger, and it's pivoting on your thumb and first. So you're just moving your middle finger. Okay? Now, I don't know if you can hear this, but if I hit flat right here, again with the tip, or I hit on the top, you hear that right here it's lower tones, and then here are higher tones. They both sound good to me, but what people say is that you want to hear more overtones. So again, the magic degree is 45 degrees. So if we hit at 45 degrees, we should get both lows and highs. Okay? When you're done playing in a band piece, you hold it up there until it's done ringing. And then once it's done, that's when you put it down. Okay? We don't want to go. Because you hear, you heard that, yes? We don't want to do that. It also looks like you're being lazy. All right, if you have a roll, we're going to go to the inside right corner, and we're going to roll in the side, just doing a little bit of a fast motion in our middle finger like that. Now, the tip to that I have for you is if you go in the corner and you move it to an angle, then you're going to have less space and your roll is going to be better. Okay? Now, when you finish it, roll, roll, release, roll, release. Similar to tambourine, you want to hear the release usually if it has a release. You never do this. It's not dinner time, right? Okay? And then some people do roll at the top. I like to go to the corner. If you have a piece where the triangle has a lot of rhythms, sometimes you will actually mount it on a stand and you'll play with two beaters. And really, you can clip the triangle on a stand, but if you can hold it, let's hold it, okay? If you don't have time to transition, we need to look at who's playing what, or we need to use a triangle machine, which I have at my school, but it's one of those where you can just hit this rubber band and it makes it hit the triangle for you, okay? If we're doing this properly, we should be holding it. So if there's something where you need to put it on the stand because you're transitioning, let's say you play tambourine and triangle or something like that, and you just don't have time, you know, you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, ready, go. If you have to do that, do that. But if you're just playing triangle the whole piece, you need to pick it up because it is affecting the sound, right? It's not as good a sound as we had earlier, so we need to actually hold it, okay? Suspended cymbal. Here are some general rules. There's a lot we could go over, but we'll do that in class when necessary. But here's the general rules. So if you can use actual suspended cymbal mallets, that'll be better, but usually people use soft murmur mallets or something. Now when we're rolling, we actually want to be at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Okay, and we want to be on the edge of the edge, okay? Not an inch in, inch and a half, right on the edge of the edge. And even when it gets louder, you stay on the edge of the edge. Okay, don't roll over here by the dome. Now what I like to do is get it vibrating first, so I'll do a little flam at a low level. It's probably inaudible, okay? And then I'll start the roll slow. Again, I have to manage my touch. I'm trying to just get a wash of sound, so I don't want to hear pop, 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 right? So I have a light touch. And as we get faster, we'll get a little higher too, okay? Now you might have a roll that lasts 3 beats, 2 beats, 4 beats. It usually crescendos. We don't want to hear that bright sound until the last second. Okay, so it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. We don't want to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's just too much, right? And the same thing, if it's 2 beats, you're going to have to do a little faster. 1, 2, right? Now, when you finish, don't just finish down. Right? Lift up when you're done. A little wave. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Sometimes you have a choke. You can just throw your hands close to 3 and 9 o'clock. Right? Even more effective is to throw your hands over the top and get your arms involved. That's even more sharp, so it sounds pretty cool. Okay, if you just have a hit on suspended cymbal, just do a flam with one primary note. Okay. Okay, sometimes they'll ask for stick with suspended cymbal, so it really depends on the cymbal, but usually that's going to be the bead hitting inside about 3 inches, 2 inches. If it's a crash, you're usually going to hit on the shoulder off at an angle. Okay, if they ask for the dome, same thing, shoulder of the stick. Okay, it's very rare that you'll hit the dome with the tip, but sometimes they might want that. So again, it depends on the cymbal, it depends on the sound. So some of this, and a lot of these toys, you're going to be experimenting and finding the best sound, but there's a general right and wrong. Okay, if you do have a China cymbal, you actually don't set it up with the dome on top. You actually set up the dome upside down because we're trying to match the angle, just like here, if we have a stick hit, okay, or suspended, or if you have a roll. So in general, this is correct. This is incorrect. Okay, I know that you're used to seeing the dome on top like this, but what we're worried about is your striking zones being at a downward angle. Okay, with crash cymbal, I like to put the crash cymbal right in between the bass drum and the snare, because usually on a march, your metronome is the bass drum, snare, and crash, so we want to make sure it's kind of like in this triangle where we're going to be real tight listening-wise. Okay, now I usually put the trap table on the right of it because that usually works, but it depends on the piece. I'm going to move it because I want you to be able to see some stuff. Again, I could go on for hours and hours about crash cymbal, but I'm just going to give you some general rules. Okay, now first of all, a lot of kids have trouble knowing how to hold it. So I kind of think about this handle here as like a handlebar on a bike. So we're going to put our hand on top like this. Now you do need your thumb on the inside and your knuckles on the other side. So let's take a look at that. So I'm putting my fingers around, okay, and then my thumb is on this side. That way I can manipulate the angle of the cymbal. So generally, your knuckles right there and your thumb's here. Okay, you're gonna hold it close to the dome so you can control that. If you're too far away, you can't control anything, right? Okay. Now, when we're holding it, we're gonna do 45 degrees. This is a general rule. Your teacher might want something different, but this is just general. We want to hold it at a 45 degree. And we're going to put our right hand over the top of that. Now, we need to be able to see what we're doing. So you need to offset your cymbals a little bit where you can still see that bottom cymbal about an inch or so. Okay? Now, when you play, we actually want to hear a flam because we want the air to escape on the bottom, and then it hits, and then the air escapes on the top. If you hear when I push them together, that's air getting trapped in there. So we don't want an air pocket in there. So we need to offset it so we get more of a flam so the air can escape. We don't want the cymbals to be exactly even because then air can't escape. So everything kind of offset, okay? Now, I'm going to keep my left as stationary as possible and keep it there. And then I'm going to offset my right a little bit higher on the bottom so I get a flam. And then I'm going to think about them hitting each other going left to right, not sliding across each other. So I'm trying to throw them together and get that flam. Now, I'm not the best cymbal player in the world, but these are general rules, okay? Obviously, if it's a softer crash, we don't want to have too much separation. Okay, if it's louder, I still don't want you to separate that much. You're just going to add more velocity. Okay, because we want to make sure the angle is perfect. If the more we do, the more the angle could be off. This is about as much as I separate in a crash cymbal, whether it's loud or soft. Or soft, I might get even closer. Sometimes if you have a really soft crash, I actually put them together and then just set it like Pac-Man on my stomach, and I just kind of release. Okay. Sometimes it helps if it's a soft piece. If you're about to do a big crash that's out of nowhere, you might want to warm up your cymbal by kind of hitting with your knee. That way the cymbals are already vibrating, and that's going to help it not get such a harsh sound. You can also add a little bit of sizzle by keeping the top touching for a little bit longer. That helps round it off a little bit. When I have a big crash, I like to release and finish like a suspended cymbal, where the dome is up, and let it just take my fingers away and let it just dangle, okay? Now that's if you have time, okay? Now if you have light crashes like in a march, keep them pretty close. And don't separate them, keep it real light. And then if you have accents, put a little more energy. Now in a march or any other piece, you're gonna have chokes too. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna strike, and then you're gonna pull it into your body. Be careful to separate so you don't pinch yourself. That's gonna take some practice, okay? You need to be very short. You gotta push into your body enough to cut it off. This is not a good choke. You still hear it vibrating. It's gotta be pretty sharp, okay? That's gonna take some practice. Now these are gonna hurt after a while, so if you can put them down so you can relax your hands, okay? Stretch them out. It's not gonna feel great. Put it down when you can, okay? Now same thing like with the triangle. You're gonna let it finish crashing before you put it down, okay? So don't go crash and then just throw them down. Crash, let them dissipate on their own, then you can put them down. Now each piece might require a different crash cymbal, so usually on marches I like a smaller crash cymbal that's a little bit lighter. And then if it's a prettier piece, maybe we go with a larger cymbal. That's not going to be so high pitch and crass. So it just depends on what the director wants. It depends on what you have at your school. So just keep your ear open and kind of think about, does it make sense in the context of the music? Don't just wait for your director to think of those things. Okay? Use your ears. So there are way more instruments than just that, but those are the basic ones where I always have to review that. And so we'll go over the details of the other instruments that you have in your piece when you get it.
Right on.